Roles and responsibilities as a qualitative researcher. Mario Small in 2010 described qualitative researchers as universally doing four things while conducting research. According to Small, qualitative researchers work cyclically, identify new distinctions, become intimate with the data, and construct deeper meaning. To accomplish the multifaceted tasks of qualitative research, the researcher must be mindful of positionality, reflexivity, and their role as researcher as instrument. Unvarsky, in 2021, defined positionality as how a person interprets the world based on opinions, values, and experiences. Working with at risk students shed light on my positionality. I learned that an 11th grade student lived in an apartment with friends. In my middle class experience, no one moved out of their parents' house until after college. This knowledge of my student situation made it clear that my experiences were keeping me from being able to help students in their current situations. Building relationships with my students, learning their values and experiences, and building on what they already knew was paramount in giving them the tools they needed to continue to grow. Rethinking and reconstructing meaning in this situation led me to become a reflexive teacher. According to Barrett and others in 2020, reflexivity is a process of continuously questioning, analyzing, and reevaluating assumptions and perspectives as we discuss phenomena with others. As an English language arts teacher, I plan to introduce the first person point of view to a group of seventh graders. I created a 2-day activity incorporating direct instruction and a short project where students would move through the hallways, describing what they saw, heard, and experienced. It was a masterpiece of a lesson plan. During the introduction, I asked my students if they knew the first person point of view. Almost 100% of the students raised their hands. I called on a student in the front row with the smug thinking that I would allow a few guesses and then give them the actual definition. The first student had the definition almost word for word. Stunned, I asked how he knew. His answer was simple: video games. I asked if the rest of the class also knew this. They all nodded their heads. My assumptions shaped my lesson plan and caused me to significantly underestimate my students' knowledge. Reflexivity happened swiftly as I decided what to do with my savvy students for the next 45 minutes and how to avoid this situation in the future. Janet Barrett in 2007 defined the researcher as instrument as the manifestation of the researcher's viewpoint, experience, and subjectivity in data collection and analysis. As a classroom teacher, I spend a good portion of my time gathering and analyzing data. Data from standardized tests is the most troubling when examining the researcher as instrument concept. Students should all achieve high scores on standardized tests, as I used research based techniques to teach the skills presented on the test. When students' scores are low, I find it difficult not to blame faulty test questions, disobedient students, or less than perfect home lives. In reality, those reflect my feelings of inadequacy as a teacher when students do not adequately grasp the concepts I teach. In analyzing test data, understanding the researcher as instrument is essential to ensure that the analysis is about the students and their needs and not about me. A qualitative researcher is intentional. The qualitative researcher is intentional, designing a study that has the best chance to answer the research questions and provide the community with possible solutions to those questions is a vital role that the researcher must fill. The researcher must collect data with careful intention and analyze that data with an objective eye. A qualitative researcher is open minded. The findings of a qualitative study are never apparent at the beginning of the study. The researcher must go into the research knowing the findings will emerge through careful observation and analysis. Taking the time to acknowledge assumptions and biases at the outset of a study allows the researcher to investigate the data deeply. The qualitative researcher is patient. Qualitative research requires a continuous evaluation and reevaluation of each phase of the process. Patience is necessary to revisit steps that may appear complete, to ensure that the study's findings are in line with accounts brought by the participants. A researcher must have the patience to step away from the research to gain a clearer perspective. Notes to self: the story is important. I do not know the ending to the story the participants are telling. Immersion: I must immerse myself in the topic to truly understand the themes presented by the data. Step away to gain perspective. Do not be afraid to step away from the data. Be cyclical. Do not resist going back to the beginning. I am not the one telling the story. The participants may try to bow to my position in the organization. I must not let them. Qualitative research can never be completely objective. What I bring to the study must be transparent to the consumer.